But
speak fiction.
I'm gonna like devil's advocate for pro-choice. Do you think you're pro-life, or are you something else which would agree with pro-choice in that retrospect?
I mean, I'm more closer to actually pro circumstance. I don't really have. I haven't really seen any convincing argument for pro life. I'll be honest.
All right, all right.
Like I feel like abortion and like homosexuality or things like that. I feel like these things are just like obviously morally okay, quite obvious.
So what would be like the since your stance is like pro circumstance, would be the circumstance in which you would like hold to?
I mean, I could give a few. Like, for example, if unfortunately a young lady is taken sexually advantage of, and unfortunately the consequences are getting pregnant, I think that'd be completely morally okay for her to abort the baby. Because I mean, she'll be morally traumatized, or not morally traumatized, but emotionally traumatized, and sexually traumatized for the rest of her life. So at the very least, we shouldn't traumatize her more with having the baby. I think that in a medical condition, it's okay. For example, if the mother's life is at risk and the baby's life is already, for the most part, going to most likely die, or that there's a higher chance and a higher leverage to save the mother compared to the baby, I think it'd be okay. I think in an instance of like financial instability, to where the parents will not be able to afford this child, and to where they would be just birthing them into a home that's unstable, and to where they can't meet the basic life requirements that would allow for that child to go consistently, or I guess not consistently, but or I guess what I mean by consistently is like in a way to where they're not like mentally or cognitively impoverished or like nutriently like impoverished. You know, I think that in that instance it'd be okay to abort. Um, yeah, there's just a few.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask you a question. It's like necessarily just like a conditional that's gonna follow. Like more so, it's just gonna be pointing towards the point about like the rape analogy. I guess I'm not necessarily going against that. It's like saying, oh hey, this is morally not okay because obviously I agree that if you got raped, you would have the moral obligation to obviously kill the child. I kind of think that's reasonable in that sense. But more so, I just think that there's more flexible options, I guess, I would say. Like, I wouldn't say it's necessarily my stats to go against. I just think there's better options for that. So, what I mean, like, would you agree that there could be like referential help for things like that? Which, say, for example, like before this woman gets pregnant at all, like, because it takes time to even, fertilize the egg, this and that, So what if she gets referential help before the baby is like, done, and then they find out that this specific woman is pregnant, right? Do you think there could be referential help which could help suit or more so balance this mental framework? In which later on can provide a positive solution for the baby and the mother. Do you think that would be mutually inclusive?
I don't. I think it'd actually be impossible to tell, at least how much you can psychologically help her. But I actually think that you'd be putting her through far much more stress and far much more trauma, not just physically but mentally, if you force her to go forth with that pregnancy. Now, obviously, this isn't going to apply to every case because I do appreciate and acknowledge the fact that there are young women out there who are psychologically fine with it and are physically fine with it, even though I think that it's still dumb to allow them to give birth. But in the cases to where they are, sure, if they just don't want to, they don't have to. But that's just fine with my position, though. I'm just saying in instances to where they don't want to, this isn't autonomous to them. They are making the autonomous decision. They clearly don't want to, and there's clearly scientific evidence and psychological evidence that's pointing to the fact that we are introducing them to a life far worse compared to if they didn't. I think in those instances it'd be morally okay. In fact, I'd say we morally ought to abort.
I mean, yeah, that would be like fair if like is forced and etc. But I've like sorry, someone was talking to me in my household. What I'm saying is that like I also stated that under the circumstance I'm morally okay with that. Just for the set thing, I know you mentioned the forceful thing about that. So the main point which I'm bringing up is that like the scenario which I proposed, like because you answered you think it's impossible, but if it is to be deemed impossible,
Wait, what's
can you give
impossible?
some because you deemed it's actually impossible, it's like no, yes sir, correct? Just to make sure I'm tracking, okay?
What I mean, so not to know. I am saying that it's impossible to deduce from some theoretical model to ensure with certainty the woman's condition psychologically and physically, and to also give a model that reports it accurately upon time throughout the pregnancy, after the pregnancy, and throughout her life becoming a mother. Yeah, I don't think there's any model that can accurately predict that, at least with their consistency. That doesn't have variations.
Well, I wouldn't say accurately predicted because, like, I'm pretty sure, like, there could be, like, say for example, predictions which can be pretty good, but I wouldn't say it's like accurate to the point. It's like, say for example, oh hey, your hairline's this way, it's gonna go this way, it's backwards. Haha, I just fucking predicted that. You're a stupid bitch. If someone was to, predict that in that said way, I wouldn't say it's like on that level of probability. But like I'm saying because these are better referential helps, I'm just saying I think there's better potentiality that could help suit this. Obviously, I'm not dismissing your case. I do think and do consider the fact that it couldn't help, but I'm just saying that, in the long run, this can also help solve some negatives, right? I'm not saying it's going to be universally applied because obviously, it's literally contradictory to what we see within, modern standards and etc. But the entire point in which I'm making is that, and under some circumstance, you could, have some potentiality. The potentiality being used here is that there could be some help before the, baby is more so, killed. I wouldn't necessarily say it is forcing them through more trauma as well, because more so, I think, like, in like regards to trauma and how it works, don't you like think trauma would have to bring up something to actually trigger that said trauma, like whether it be like mentally, because I'm assuming mental decisions like autonomous wise, with the whole thing about the decision of abortion, etc. In that case, I'm just saying that if there is that said potentiality, I think there is a way to particularly ground or like. Because I'm pretty sure when we speak of abortion, this is like the decision afterwards, which comes after that. I wouldn't necessarily say the mother would be okay with having the baby, but more so, not killing it. Like, so say for example, right, um, within the model and the future outcome of the model, let's just say this help could particularly consider, or so like, also, I think I should clarify when I say referential help because I feel like we're using that term very loosely. Just something that could potentially like help. Not saying it's like guaranteed or anything, just something that exists to like help, trauma victims, this and that. There's like hotlines and etc. I'm pretty sure those exist, you know. Well, yeah, they obviously do exist. But the whole point in which I'm, give me a second, give me a second. Here, man, get out of my face, please, respectfully. Okay, back to what I was saying. More so respectfully, uh, in the retrospect towards the model which I presented. Sorry, I'm also being distracted a lot here. But more so, like, obviously, since these options do exist, I'm saying that, there's more flexible options, which could prevent not helping kill the kid, but not so, much more, help, like, reduce the mother's, thing. I wouldn't necessarily say the accurate outcome would come to abortion. That's what I'm saying. So, under some type of consequentialist view, I don't think it will outright come to abortion. That's, like, the main, like, line of the model in itself. Consider it's like hinging upon trauma, this and that, more so. So I just think, yeah, I guess that's the model which I hold to. And under that circumstance, the decision just purely like considers on like a stream of events, and how good the help is. So I would say that if there is case in which, they could allow for this said abortion like prevention. It doesn't necessarily kill a child. It doesn't necessarily fully help the mother, but is beneficial towards the baby's life and etc. Right? Okay, Dodge, shut up. Um, like you know what? I'll just go on mute because people don't like me yapping. I'm sorry for the long yapping. Just like I'm known for doing that, so just keep that in mind. Yeah.
Well, I'm just not sure where like the model's being described. I mean, if all by referential help, you mean just potential facts that could like reduce the amount of trauma, physically and mentally that they retain. I mean, well, we just have studies that prove that's not the case. I mean, obviously, we have multiple studies from the National Library of Medicine, obviously appointed to by Public Health Medication. For example, we have one study that's done by Ash Esler Adunir, a very, very popular neuroscientist, SLU Saul, also another popular neuroscientist, that actually explained that gestation can be considered as trauma within your adolescence, and actually most experience post-traumatic stress disorder, which is just another psychological trauma that is actually very, very common to happen, right? So seemingly we have a predictive model, or at least there are predictive models we can use that actually predict on more cases than not that they will go through this trauma. We can also give another predictive model that actually goes towards trauma exposure and adolescents' attitudes to having a baby, to which actually over 60%, surprisingly, actually almost 70%, pronounced that they would rather not have a baby and that this would make their lives a lot worse. So we already have, hold on, let me cite that real quick. Oh yeah. So we already have like mental priors that go against these models, right? I'm not saying that there can't be some model that does help in some sense with, obviously these teenagers. I'm just saying that if we morally ought to make their lives better, and if the goal is to opt for a society to where we are giving them the most productive lives possible, this just wouldn't be the case if we were to force them to, give birth. Also, actually, there's another point you made, but I guess that's not really important here. But yeah, that's really all I have to say. I'm not really sure, I guess, what the model is.
I mean, if that's the case, and you already accept that there could be, some substantiated help and etc. You also granted, I'm pretty sure from the beginning, the point about like, hello, can I ask you a question? Do you think, um,
Wait, before
in
you ask me,
some
I
way,
just want to clarify. When I say sometimes, like it could help, I'm just saying that there could be a minor instance to where at least there's one person like just statistically speaking, there's always going to be one person that this helps. But I'm just saying this doesn't work on a majority level. That's why we shouldn't prioritize it. But,
yeah,
but what
yeah,
were you
yeah,
saying? What was your question?
yeah. It wasn't more so a question. Sorry, it's just a blender. The whole point about my model is that it's not really like a maximizing utility type thing, but more so it's like an open, like, say for example, you can view it as like a really shitty hotline for like, these victims or something like that. More so, it's just a flexible way for, to solve like a negative. It's not guaranteed to work this way because it's not, obviously it's the case and it doesn't help on like the standards of these people and etc. Obviously, you already provided like substantial evidence towards that, and my model in that sense, right? In that point, I just made that it's more so could be way more flexible way, that was the whole entire model. It's just that in some circumstances capable of helping like say for example, like the pro circumstance like setting. So yeah, the pro circumstance which I actually hold to, because I've even stated I devil's advocate for abortion sometimes, like pro-choice. So that obviously wouldn't be genuinely my stance. So this is like more in accordance with like pro-life based upon the argumentation of what's being said. I'm just saying this is more so like a pro circumstance type of thing. It's best fitting for pro circumstance. I wouldn't say it's for best fitting for pro life, instead of pro circumstance, because obviously, due to the failure in global maximization of the set, that would just contradict it actually being a fittable, usable way. So in that sense, I would just say it's more so for a more justifiable way for the pro circumstance type thing, which is what I'm arguing for. I'm pretty sure this is like the end of the conversation, I guess, because like I don't think we're gonna get far from here. But this
I
was
mean,
a
I get.
pretty good.
Mhm.
Uh, this is a pretty good discussion, in my opinion. Good talking with you. Good man. Good man.
Well, just real quick, I just want to say, and then we can end it. I'm not gonna like give any like progressive like points. I'm just gonna say this like generally when we look at consequentialist views, which I take it that's kind of the paradigm you're operating under because you clarified you're operating under a consequentialism kind of view, but you're not a utilitarian. Like you don't care about maximizing yada yada this welfare. That's completely fine, and you can be a pro circumstance. I'm just saying that like saying that there are like if your goal of the convo and like if your belief is just that at least in such a convo of this, because I understand you're devil's advocating, but if you're just saying within this current paradigm you hold that there's just at least one person that can help or three, I guess I don't disagree with that. I just took it when you said that it's more. I guess I just took it when you're using a model. Generally, I just take it we only use models to try to provide systems that seem to be consistent amongst most rational agents. And I just take it that like most rational agents wouldn't think that this is something that's like moral, right? And I take it that actually it seems as though like I guess according to the psychology of most teenage girls, they like wouldn't say that this is according to the research. But if you're just saying that that wasn't even your goal because you clarified that we haven't even exhausted the global space, that's not like really my goal. I guess the only thing I'm trying to say is that it appears that it's consistently moral and that most people's intuitions and rationale and their wants point to not actually going through a pregnancy, at least at such an age through when it comes to just teenage pregnancy, but let alone rape pregnancy. I don't think this fits with like most people's intuitions. If you're fine with that, and if you're just saying that this account could help for some people, then I don't disagree with that. But yeah,
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but like more so just like in part of the most rational agents part. I would say more so it's just morally fitting for these people who are in this circumstance. Say for example, I would try and use an analogy regarding towards like a simpler explanation, but I'm gonna put it like this, I guess. Like these people have found the most help within this specific hotline, etc. Right? And if they find that, I'm saying that these like specific moral agents or these moral agencies would be more persuaded through their intuition to follow with this. So what I'm essentially saying, as I've already clarified, because like the distinction between the stances which I've already upheld, like with the circumstances and the universal setting which these other stances uphold, because obviously this is more so of like a pro circumstance like argumentation as I clarified. So I would just say more so that it's best fitting for these specific agents which are capable of receiving the most help for this. So in that case, I would see as like a fittable argumentation for pro circumstance rather than it is like the other argumentations, because like I'm pretty sure you agree that this would be, if it is the case, if we grant the consequence which I mentioned, it being the most beneficial help, it would obviously be persuaded towards the moral intuition from what's being followed, like just guessing based off what you said so far. But yeah, that's mainly what I'm just trying to say, is that the argument falls under more so a pro circumstance, I think. So yeah, are you okay with me saving the recording now, or do you got like a few things to say?
well, I just don't understand when you say that it even would attempt to match with most people's intuitions or like a pro circumstance window, because seemingly all you mean to say by pro circumstance is just that there's some circumstances to where it can be justifiable to abort, and seemingly if you're just saying that, then like that isn't really. I don't mean to be rude when I say this. This is more of like a literal phrasing, not like a meta thing, but like it just isn't really like pertaining or interesting to like the actual convo of whether it's like morally ethical to do such a decision. Because in some like press circumstance framework, someone could say that's justifiable in every circumstance except for one to abort. Or in the case, where alternatively someone could just say we should abort in every single case except for one. Like, like that'd still be pro circumstance, but like obviously that wouldn't match with most people's intuitions. That's all I'm saying. Like it feels like we have very clear evidence from the studies and reports that it doesn't match with intuitions. But if you agree with that, then I mean I don't know. That's all I have to.
Yeah, yeah, I get what you're saying about that point, but more so, the reason why I even brought up this point is because, like, or just the argumentation in general in the model is because, like, there seem to be some like consistency of people who believe like this certain thing can happen because earlier, like, yeah, there's like lots of accounts of people saying that referential help, it just doesn't help in general, and like I've already gave a few examples like hotlines and etc. Not the best help, but if there is a certain circumstance which you agree to, I'm just saying off that point. That's about it. But other than that, I would just say it works best for this certain circumstance, and a lot of people seem to hold the negative on that.
What
To make sense.
circumstance?
The circumstance which I mentioned, it's just like a lot of people seem to have the
Are we still
negative.
talking about like a rape case or?
No, 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 no. It's just like a meta thing towards like the model in itself. It's just like people like hold that like negative towards what I affirm. So that's why we even decided to try and test the first circumstance argument in the first place. Because of,
Oh, okay.
obviously what I just wanted to do. That's about it. So yeah.
If that's all you're saying, I don't really have much to add then.